Hello, my name is Jessica Quinlan. I'm here to talk to you about a very sensitive topic, rape and sexual violence. According to the Office for National Statistics, police recorded rape incidents have nearly doubled from 2014 to 2017 of 20,000 to 41,000. As these numbers have increased, I felt it was very necessary to research and investigate the different outlets that the UK has to offer to victims of rape. To understand how this crime impacts a victim's life, an organization who helps survivors of such a traumatic experience connected me to Tanith, a rape survivor. After speaking with Tanith, I spoke with several rape crisis centers to find out what resources are available to survivors. They provided me with more information about the ongoing issues that rape crisis centers face and what more can be done to assist with their issues. I arranged a meeting with Tanith at the Rape or Sexual Abuse Support Center, also known as ROSA, a rape crisis center. Tanith speaks out for the first time to share her rape attack story and the impact it has had on her life.
About 3.5 years ago, I got a random ad on Facebook from some random guy who said he knew me from the pub uptown, and so after chatting for a bit, I accepted his friend request, and we were talking and flirting and stuff, I guess. And I had a boyfriend at the time, but we'd been quite distant, and I was seeking comfort essentially and attention, you know. And so he tried to come round to my house a bunch of times, and like I wasn't really comfortable with it, and like Smoke was telling me to stop, but eventually he came round because he had court the next day or something, so I felt sorry for him, and I had friends around, so I felt safe. Mm-hmm. So we were drinking, listening to music, that sort of thing, just hanging out as you do, and gradually one by one my friends all went to bed or left or whatever, and then it was just the two of us, and he asked to stay and I said no, and he asked if he could stay for a little bit longer, and so I was like, fine, but I'm going to bed soon. It's like 2 or something. And the whole evening I'd been telling him we were not having sex, like in those words. And then he, I don't know, got very physical and was all over me, and I tried to fight him off and push him away, but he was getting quite aggressive. He was hitting me and throwing me around and that sort of thing, pinching me and stuff. And so eventually I just sort of stopped fighting, and he raped me. When it was all over, he just sort of like got up, and I was like a state, and I stumbled to the bathroom, but like I was in total bits, like I hadn't I don't know, I was looking in the mirror at myself, and like there's makeup all down my face, and I was just like bruises, and it was really, really bad. And a week later, I reported it to the police after speaking to my mum and my boyfriend at the time. They encouraged me to go, and they said that they'd support me through the whole thing, and so I went and I reported it, and then it went to trial.
What was the outcome?
He changed his plea on the day of trial to guilty and went to prison. So he's in prison now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did he get sentenced for?
3.5 years.
Okay.
He'll be out next May.
Do you worry about that?
Every day. I already don't go out. Like my social life is still suffering. Like I don't have many friends left at all. I don't go out in my own hometown. I just don't ever. I won't even do my shopping at the supermarket. And he's being not partially released, but moved to a different prison so that he gets like day release and stuff. So I've been warned that he will be around, so I've had to draw up an exclusion zone around my house and like my area, so that like he can't come into it and trigger me or freak me out or anything, I guess. But it's really hard. And like, I'm having to move away from my hometown. I've lived in this town for my whole life, pretty much. And like, he's ruined it for me, you know. He's taken away my sense of safety. And that's priceless. So now I have to move and start over. And there's nothing that prepares you for that. Nothing.
So at any point, did you ever find yourself regretting that you reported it?
Every day. From the day that I reported it up until maybe 2 or 3 months after the trial was like finished. It was so painful and so long that it just didn't seem worth it for a long time. Like, all that kept me going through that was knowing that I was doing what I could to help other people who could potentially be hurt by him.
Tanith told me that she did not feel like she got enough support from the police because she was not receiving updated information and guidance throughout the process of her case. A lot of times she had to rely heavily on ROSA to keep in touch with the police in regards to her case. As a victim of a sensitive crime, Tanith felt that the police did not show enough compassion towards her vulnerable state.
Like I said, the police don't treat you very nicely. They don't really make any, I don't know, there's no real sensitivity training, if you know what I mean. They took my phone off me to start with, which is understandable, and they kept it for months and months and months and went through everything on it. Like, so my internet history, all of my conversations, all of my social media accounts, everything was gone through, all my pictures, all of my privacy was just totally destroyed. And it was horrible. It was horrendous.
Did that make you feel like basically like you're being re-victimized in a way with them going through your information?
It did. It felt like I had nothing left to give anyway. Like, nothing was mine anymore anyway. And then they violated my privacy. That's how it felt at the time. I understand that it's really important to make sure you've got the right guy.
After hearing Tanith's comments about her phone being taken away during this process, I asked Kath Hannon, a member of the Strategic Board for the West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner Board, why this happens and if it's an effective way to investigate rape cases.
But when the police do that, it's got to be proportionate, and it's got to be a reasonable line of inquiry. So if the offender said, if you check her phone, you will see that there are text messages between us, that we had a long-term relationship, and that was different to the information that the police had at that stage, then you would think that might be a reasonable line of inquiry. But then they should only be examining the timescales and the information that's relevant to that offence. I think it's completely abhorrent, really, that a victim should have to have their whole digital life exposed and potentially handed over to a defence team to make of it what they will. There is a reasonable point of inquiry which needs to be proportionate to the investigation. So yes, it needs to happen at some point, but it's got to be reasonable.
However, Tanith suggests there is room for improvement.
There must have been ways to do it that don't make survivors feel like, I don't know, like they're the ones in the wrong, like they're the ones that have to prove something. I don't know, I felt like I was just as guilty as he was, or I felt like I was being treated like I was. It's not right.
Tanith said she was encouraged by her mom and her then boyfriend to report her rape attack to the local authorities and then get the emotional support she needed from a local rape crisis center such as ROSA. ROSA is an independent charity that offers free confidential support for anyone who has experienced the trauma of rape, sexual abuse, or sexual violence. Tanith told me ROSA provided her with a safe space that she desperately needed. It was a place where she could go once a week, where she knew no one could hurt her there. In order to get a better understanding of how a rape crisis center helps a rape victim survive and cope with the aftermath of rape, I went to Survivors Trust to speak with Linda Lewis, a training and development manager, to find out the different services they provide.
People often use as helpline services. So we have one here at the Survivors Trust, a national helpline service manned by volunteers. And survivors, that's usually the gateway into services. Survivors tend to ring a helpline, ask some questions and consider whether they want to attend their local rape and sexual abuse centre for more support, more one-to-one support.
Before speaking with the rape crisis centers, I was aware of the serious issue that they face, a lack of funding. For most centers, rape victims are placed on a long waiting list before they're able to get the support that they need, such as counseling services. This past March, the government issued a response to this issue by increasing government funding, awarding grants to 79 rape crisis centers of £24 million over a 3-year cycle, which is a 10% increase in what funding the government was already providing for the rape crisis centers. However, despite the government's best efforts trying to assist with this issue of lack of funding, critics have said more money is needed to provide better support for victims of rape. With this response, I spoke with Jocelyn Anderson, Chief Executive Officer of Worcestershire Rape and Sexual Abuse Support Center, what her thoughts were on this matter.
There's a recent report from Rape Crisis England and Wales that estimates that there's around about 6,000 people on waiting lists for rape crisis centres around the country, and I think it's 172 of those are children, which is just wrong. You know, if a child has been abused, if an adult has been abused, they need support immediately, or when it's a time for them, and they need to be able to access that effectively. But because of the lack of funding, particularly for counselling services, it's getting harder and harder to provide that effective support for people.
Although there is a lack of funding to support victims of rape, Tanith, Linda, and Jocelyn want to reach out with an encouraging message to victims of rape.
But what you can do is find strategies to deal with the pain that somebody may be carrying, find some way of dealing with it and being able to live their life. And I can tell you now, I've met many people who are the most amazing people, got lots of creative skills and gone on to do some fantastic things in their life. So I would just say, don't give up, get the help you need if it's there, and you will be believed by us.
But it's not your fault. The reason it happened is because somebody chose to do this to you. There is no response, no action that anybody could ever do that would deserve a response of rape or sexual violence. There just isn't. And I think it's about putting the blame for the rape where it belongs, and that has to sit with the perpetrator.
You are already so much stronger than you feel and than your attacker has made you feel. You can do anything. You can overcome this. You can fight back, and you need to do whatever it takes to make sure that you get through this. Don't be pressured to report it, to not report it, whatever it is. Make your decisions based on you and how you feel, because it's got to be right for you. And don't accept blame for not coming forward if you don't feel strong enough. And don't let people tell you that you're a liar. They don't know.
I hope by now I was able to bring to your attention the issues around sexual violence. Also, what resources are available to help victims of rape, and what issues the rape crisis centers are facing with their financial hardships. Tanith is just one victim of many. If you felt inspired by Tanith's story and need to speak to someone, please call the number on the screen.